90% died before they turned 20. That number comes from the fossil record of the earliest human species, the ones who walked before fire, before shelters, before any weapon that could kill at a distance. Researchers have counted them, measured them, aged them by the wear on their teeth and the growth lines inside their bones. Across Africa, Europe, and Asia, the answer keeps coming back the same. 9 out of 10 never made it to the age you were when you got your first real job, not because of bad luck, not because of one catastrophic event, because the ordinary acts of living, drinking water, sleeping through the night, walking through tall grass were lethal. This is the story of the deadliest time to have ever been a human, not because of one disaster, not because of one predator, but because every single day, from the moment you were born to the moment you stopped breathing, the world was trying to kill you, and it almost always succeeded. To understand how deadly it was, you need to understand what killed them. And it was not one thing, it was everything, from every direction, all at once. Start with the first breath. A human infant is the most helpless creature on the African savannah. A wildebeest calf stands within minutes of being born. A baboon infant clings to its mother's fur and moves with the troop within hours. A human baby cannot lift its own head. It cannot crawl. It cannot grip a branch. It cannot run. It cannot scream loud enough to scare anything away. For the first year of its life, it is a 7-pound piece of warm, slow-moving protein, and every predator within a mile can smell it. The data from hunter-gatherer societies, the closest living model we have for how our ancestors lived, shows that roughly 27% of all infants died before their first birthday, more than 1 in 4. In the United States today, that number is less than 1 in 200. In their world, it was 1 in 4. Not from rare catastrophes, from ordinary days. Dehydration, because the mother's milk dried up during a drought. Infection, because a scratch from a thorn became a wound that swelled and blackened and would not stop spreading. Diarrhea, from contaminated water at a river crossing. A fever that climbed through the night and never came down. There was no medicine, no antibiotics, no sterile cloth. If a newborn developed an infection in its umbilical stump, the place where the cord was cut or bitten through, there was nothing anyone could do but watch. And that was just the first year. By age 5, 40% were gone. By the time a child reached puberty, roughly age 15, half of everyone born alongside them had already died. The ones still standing at 15 had already outlived more people than most modern humans will lose in a lifetime. But here is what makes this story worse than the numbers suggest. The children who survived were not safe. They had simply graduated to the next set of threats, and those threats did not get smaller. They got bigger. Because once you could walk, you could wander, and once you could wander, you could be taken. The Taung Child was roughly 3 years old, an Australopithecus africanus, found in South Africa in 1924, one of the most famous fossils in the history of science. For decades, researchers assumed it had simply died, a young hominin who did not make it. Sad, but unremarkable. Then in 2006, a team led by Lee Berger re-examined the skull. The damage pattern on the bone, 2 puncture marks in the base of the eye sockets, and specific scratch marks along the top of the cranium matched perfectly with one thing: an eagle. Not a leopard, not a hyena, a bird. A large raptor, likely something similar to a modern crowned eagle, had swooped down, driven its talons into a 3-year-old's eye sockets, and carried it away. There was no warning, no sound. Crowned eagles do not circle, they sit motionless in trees until the moment they drop. The same hunting method they use today on vervet monkeys across southern Africa. Talons into the eyes, lift, gone. A 3-year-old playing at the edge of the group, taken into the sky. And eagles were not the only thing hunting from above. At ground level, the threats were constant and varied in ways most people never think about. Leopards were the single most consistent predator of early humans. Not lions, leopards, because leopards are ambush hunters. They do not chase in open ground. They wait in tall grass, in low branches, at the edges of tree lines where the shade meets the sun. They are silent, they are patient, and they are specialists in catching primates. In 2025, a research team led by Manuel Dominguez Rodrigo ran the original Homo habilis fossils, the very bones that defined our first tool-making ancestor, through AI analysis designed to identify bite marks on ancient bone. The probability came back above 90%. Leopard. The founding members of Homo habilis had been killed and partially eaten by leopards. This was not a one-time event. Across multiple fossil sites in East and South Africa, the pattern repeats. Puncture marks from canine teeth on skulls and limb bones. Drag marks consistent with a carcass being pulled into a tree. The signature move of a leopard, which caches its kills in branches to keep them from hyenas. Our ancestors were being hunted, killed, and stored in trees like leftovers. And then there was water. Every living thing needs to drink. And in the African landscape where most early human species evolved, water meant rivers, lakes, and seasonal pools. Every one of those water sources was a kill zone. Crocodiles. Nile crocodiles grow up to 18 feet long and can weigh over 1,000 pounds. They do not chase. They wait at the water's edge, submerged, with only their eyes above the surface. When something kneels to drink, anything from a wildebeest to a 70-pound hominin, they explode from the water, lock their jaws around the skull or limb, and drag it under. The bite force of a Nile crocodile exceeds 3,700 pounds per square inch. A human skull does not survive that. And crocodiles do not kill cleanly. They grip, roll, and hold under. If the first bite does not kill you, and it often does not, you drown. And you had to drink. Every day. There was no alternative. You could not carry water. You could not store it. Every 24 hours, you walked to the edge, you knelt, and you hoped that today was not the day the water reached back. Now picture yourself there. You are a young adult. You have survived infancy, beaten the 27%. You have survived childhood, beaten the 50%. You are 15 years old. You can walk, run, scan the tree line for the shape that should not be there. You know how to chip a stone into an edge. You know the sound a leopard makes when it is far away, and you know the silence it makes when it is close. You are lean. You are scarred. You have buried people you loved before you had words for what you lost. And you are one of the survivors. And the world is not done with you, because the next threat is not a predator. It is your own body. Every cut is a potential death sentence. There are no stitches, no bandages, no antiseptic. A deep gash from a sharp rock, the same kind of rock you use as a tool every day, can open the skin to bacteria that will cause an infection you cannot fight. Staphylococcus, streptococcus, Clostridium, the bacterium behind gangrene and tetanus. These organisms have existed for billions of years. They were in the soil, in the water, on the skin of every animal your ancestors butchered. Today, that same wound gets 6 stitches and a course of antibiotics. 2 million years ago, it killed you. If this is the kind of history you want, the version that does not flinch, subscribe. There is a lot more to come. A broken bone is not a temporary inconvenience. It is a crisis. If you break your leg on the savannah, you cannot walk. If you cannot walk, you cannot keep up with the group. If you cannot keep up, you will be left behind. And what waits behind is everything that has been following the group, waiting for exactly this, a straggler, something that cannot run. Researchers have found healed fractures in prehistoric bones, femurs, tibias, forearms that show the bone knitted back together over weeks or months. Those individuals survived. But for every healed fracture in the fossil record, how many bones broke and never healed? How many people simply disappeared, swallowed by the savannah the moment they fell. We do not find those bones. The scavengers got there first. And then there was hunger. The human body can survive roughly 3 weeks without food. But long before you die, you become slower, weaker, less alert. Your reaction time drops. Your vision narrows. In a world where a leopard can close 30 feet in under 2 seconds, the difference between well-fed and hungry is the difference between alive and dead. Famine was not rare. It was seasonal. The dry season could last 4 to 6 months. Fruit disappeared. Game migrated. Water sources shrank to stagnant pools crawling with parasites. And the bones carry the evidence, lines of arrested growth, grooves cut into the enamel of the teeth, permanently recording the months when the body stopped building itself because there was nothing left to build with. Starvation was not a disaster. It was a season. And when the sun went down, every threat got worse. For the earliest human species, the ones who lived before controlled fire, night was not rest. It was 12 hours of blindness in a world that hunted by sight, sound, and smell. A leopard's eyes are built for darkness, with a reflective layer behind the retina that doubles every photon of starlight. At night, it sees 6 times better than you do. You are lying on open ground, breathing, radiating heat, and the thing that has been watching your group all day is now circling closer. 20 feet, 15. There were no walls, no doors, no flames to push the dark back. For millions of years, our ancestors lay down each night with nothing between them and what was out there but the sound of each other breathing. The only defense was someone staying awake. And even that was not always enough. The sun going down was not the end of the day. It was the beginning of the most dangerous 12 hours of your life, every single night, for millions of years. But here is where the story begins to turn. Because inside all of this death, all of this predation, infection, starvation, and darkness, something was happening that should not have been possible. They were keeping each other alive. In the Republic of Georgia, at a site called Dmanisi, researchers found a skull labeled D3444. It belonged to a Homo erectus individual who lived approximately 1.8 million years ago. The skull had no teeth. Not broken teeth, no teeth at all. The jawbone had completely resorbed, meaning this individual had lost every tooth years before death, and the bone had healed smooth. Think about what that means. 1.8 million years ago, with no cooking technology, no blenders, no soft processed food, an individual with no teeth survived. For years. Someone was feeding this person, pre-chewing meat, mashing plants, finding soft foods, and placing them into the mouth of someone who could not feed themselves. 1.8 million years ago, in a world where the night alone could kill you, someone chose to keep an old, toothless, useless member of the group alive. Not because it was efficient, not because it helped the group survive, because they would not let them die. And Dmanisi is not the only evidence. In a cave in the Zagros Mountains of northern Iraq, a site called Shanidar, archaeologists found a Neanderthal skeleton labeled Shanidar 1. This individual had been catastrophically injured and had survived for decades. His left eye socket was completely crushed, almost certainly blinding him on one side. His right arm had been broken, badly healed, and eventually withered to a smooth stump, useless. He had advanced degenerative joint disease in his legs and feet that would have made every step painful. He could not hunt. He could not fight. He could not run from anything. And he lived to approximately 40 years old. 40, in a world where surviving to 20 was beating the odds. Someone carried him, cleaned his wounds, mashed his food, watched for predators while he slept, and did this not for weeks, but for decades. His injuries had healed completely years before his death. And when he finally died, there is evidence, soil samples analyzed by a French palynologist, that flowers were placed around his body. Yarrow, cornflower, grape hyacinth, not scattered by wind, not carried in by animals, placed around the body of a man they had carried for decades. A funeral, more than 60,000 years ago. An animal does not bury its dead with flowers. A survival machine does not spend decades feeding a crippled member who produces nothing. Something else was operating in these groups, something that had no survival value at all, except that it made them human. But the cruelest truth about this era is not the predators, it is not the infections, it is not the starvation, it is what they did to each other. Across every period of prehistory, from the earliest hominins to the last hunter-gatherers, the evidence of interpersonal violence is written into the bones. Fractured skulls, embedded projectile points, defensive fractures on forearms, the kind you get when you raise your arm to block a blow. At Jebel Sahaba, a cemetery in the Nile Valley dating to roughly 14,000 years ago, researchers found that nearly half, 46% of the buried individuals showed signs of violent death. Arrowheads embedded in bone, cut marks from stone blades, injuries on both men and women, young and old. This was not a single battle. The injuries accumulated over time, healed and re-injured, scarred over and reopened. These people lived under constant threat, not from animals, but from other humans, and the violence was not limited to one site. In British Columbia, skeletal collections spanning thousands of years show violent trauma rates of 20 to 30%. In the Waorani people of the Amazon, one of the most studied uncontacted groups, 60% of all deaths were caused by other humans. The most dangerous predator on the African savannah was never the leopard. It was never the crocodile. It was the creature standing next to you. And for women, there was one more killer that men never faced: childbirth. The human pelvis is a compromise between walking upright and delivering a baby with an enormous skull. Evolution solved the problem of bipedalism by narrowing the birth canal. Evolution solved the problem of intelligence by enlarging the brain. These two solutions are in direct conflict. The baby's skull at birth is already nearly as wide as the canal will allow. A few millimeters of difference, head too large, canal too narrow, baby turned the wrong way, and without intervention, both die. For most of human history, that conflict killed the mother. Best estimates for prehistoric maternal mortality range from 1.5% to 25% per birth, not per lifetime, per birth. A woman who survived 5 pregnancies had faced that risk 5 separate times. In a world without surgical intervention, without any way to stop a hemorrhage, without any way to reposition a baby trapped in the birth canal, the mathematics were brutal. And if the mother died, in almost every case, the infant died with her. No formula, no wet nurse infrastructure, no way to keep a newborn alive without its mother's milk. The data tells one story. On average, women in prehistoric populations died younger than men, not because they were weaker, but because they were doing the one thing the species needed most, and it was killing them. So when you look at that family portrait, a group of early humans standing together, children at their sides, scanning the horizon for threats, understand what you are actually seeing. You are seeing survivors. Every single one of them has already beaten odds that would terrify a modern actuary. The infant in the mother's arms has a 1 in 4 chance of dying before it learns to walk. The children standing beside them have a coin flip chance of reaching puberty. The mother has survived multiple childbirths, each one a roll of the dice. The father's body carries healed fractures and scars from encounters with predators, rivals, and the blunt physics of living without any safety net. And yet, they are standing. Together. That is the thing the statistics cannot capture. The 90% who died were not numbers. They were individuals, carried by mothers who had already buried other children, protected by fathers who had watched siblings taken by eagles, fed by grandparents who had survived starvation seasons that killed everyone around them. Every generation was a bottleneck. Every surviving child was a victory against a world that was trying to end it before it could stand. And the ones who made it through, the 10%, are the reason you exist. Your body was built by the survivors of the deadliest time to have ever been a human. The immune system running inside you right now was forged by millions of years of infections that killed everyone who could not fight them. The instinct that makes you flinch when something moves in your peripheral vision was sharpened by leopards that could see 6 times better than you in the dark. The bond you feel for your family, the one that makes you do irrational things to protect people who cannot protect themselves, that was born in a world where an old man with no teeth was kept alive for years by people who had every reason to let him go. They did not let him go. That is what you come from. And if you want to see what happened when those survivors finally stopped being prey, when one species figured out fire, language, and the kind of endurance hunting that made every animal on Earth start running, watch our video on Homo erectus, the scariest human species that ever lived. It picks up exactly where this story ends, because the 10% who survived this, they changed the world, and not gently.